I've been curious about alternatives to Wacom for a while, so when XP Pen reached out and asked me if I wanted to review their new display tablet, the Artist Studio 15.6 Pro, I was really excited to try it out. So full disclosure, they did send me one free of charge, but they gave me no instructions on what to say or on how to rate it, so everything I'm about to say is my own authentic opinion, and this video was not sponsored. So let's just jump right into the unboxing of the tablet, and fair warning, I don't own any sort of a good camera, so this is just filmed on my phone, and as a result of that, it does not look great at all, but I do think it's important to give you an idea of everything that's included and what the hardware looks like. So just bear with me as we quickly go through this. The Artist Studio 15.6 Pro arrives packaged in a box like this, with a cute little graphic on the cover for the box. Inside the box, the first thing below a protective cover is the tablet. The size is pretty decent, it's sleek and thin, and surprisingly lightweight and easy to carry around. On the side you have 8 express buttons and a scroll wheel. Removing the tablet, we have these 3 different plug adapters and a USB adapter, which is what you use to power the tablet if you don't have enough free ports in your computer. This tablet does come with a stand, which is great, and it feels really sturdy, but unfortunately it only offers one height option. Then there's the exciting bit, the pen. It comes in this heavy-duty tube, and it looks like any old tablet pen, really. I first thought it was way too light when I took it out, but then I just compared it to my Wacom pen, and it's exactly the same size and weight. Just like Wacom pens, it has these 2 buttons on the side, but it doesn't have an eraser tip. At the other end of the tube, there's 8 replacement nibs. They're really tiny, and they all have the same glossy texture to them. And then inside this little packet, we have a screen wiper, a warranty card and some stuff like that, and then finally there's just a quick start guide. So this tablet does come with a glove, which I think is really cool. It basically protects the display from getting smudges and oils from your hands. So I'm really happy they included that, but for me, a person with really small hands, it didn't really fit, so I ended up not being able to use it, but if you have average hands, I think this will fit you just fine. And then lastly, we have a HDMI to Mac adapter and the main power cable. It's Thunderbolt in one end, and the other end is basically 3 ends, 2 USB and 1 HDMI. You can either use the tablet by just plugging everything into your computer, or you can plug one of the USB ports into the power adapter I showed earlier if you don't have enough ports free in your computer. So that's everything you get included with the actual tablet. So far I'm pretty pleased with the presentation of everything and how the hardware feels. And when I plugged it into my computer, I was pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to set up. I basically just had to install the driver online, calibrate the pen as you usually do, and it was good to go. There were no extra complication or any annoying bugs that ended up taking a long time to figure out. Everything was just really smooth. One thing I will say is that since they do have this 1 in 3 cable setup, you really need a lot of free ports in your computer. Thankfully, I have like a shit ton of USB ports, but if you don't, it might be a bit annoying that you have to use 1 HDMI and 2 USB ports. But that's the only negative I have so far. And immediately when I started using it, I was impressed by how smooth this tablet feels. There's virtually no significant lag, and the pen feels great on the surface. To be fully honest, due to the low price of this tablet, I expected less smoothness than this, but it feels really natural to work on. I'm going back to my terrible phone footage here for a second because I want you to see the strokes in action. On any display tablet, there is going to be a tiny amount of lag. That's just as far as the technology has gotten, but on this tablet it's so low it's hardly noticeable. This tablet also has a whopping 8,192 pressure levels, which is way more than I've ever tried before. Getting smooth gradients with pen pressure alone is easy, and it feels like you have a lot of control over your strokes. One thing I do want to say though is that, and this is probably because I like to set my sensitivity really high, but I often had to press pretty hard on the tablet to get the level of color deposit I wanted. Sometimes this made me feel like I was going to break the screen by pushing too hard on it, and that's not a feeling I've experienced with my other tablets, which all have 2,000 pressure levels. And I think this is probably my fault for putting the sensitivity so high, but I don't want to reduce it. So that's just something to keep in mind. In a lot of these tablet review videos, it seems like the artist kind of just sat down for 3 hours and made a sketch before they made up an opinion, which is no way to review something that someone is supposed to use every day for years. So I really wanted to get a proper feel of how this tablet runs and works day to day. So in addition to using it as my main tablet for the last 2-3 weeks, I'm also doing this demo painting that I kind of slowly picked away at for the last couple weeks. So here I'm painting a Monster Hunter character wearing the Auto Dragon armor, and again, I was also using the tablet for work outside of this. One thing I started to notice pretty quickly after I started working with the artist studio regularly was that the angle of the stand really hurts my neck. Constantly looking down like that is really exhausting, and it made my neck more stiff than it's ever been. And I think if anyone wants to use this, or really any display tablet permanently, they should consider getting a more serious stand or some kind of ergotron arm so they can prop it up at a higher angle. With how cheap this base product is, that should be more than doable. And this isn't really a fault of the artist studio itself, it's just an opinion I have regarding most display tablets, really. They usually come with a stand that's at a 30-degree angle, and it's just not good for your neck to sit and look down on something. So no fault of XP Pen themselves, really, just something to keep in mind if you want a display tablet for yourself. The color gamut of the display is great, at 88% NTSC or 120% sRGB. I compared it to my main monitor, and my art actually looked more rich on the artist studio, despite my main monitor having really nice color accuracy. You can easily calibrate the colors and contrast with the pen driver too, if you're unhappy with the profile. I really like how easily accessible all the settings are on this tablet. And while we're on the subject of the screen itself, the resolution of the display is only 1920 x 1080p, and while that looks fine enough on simple paintings, when zoomed out on a drawing with a lot of information, it does look a bit noisy and muddy. In addition to this painting, I worked on a book cover with this, and since that was a rather dark and detailed painting, a lot of information kind of just got lost and it didn't look great on the screen. It wasn't to the point where I would use the tablet and then switch back to my main monitor and see a ton of mistakes. It was more just an uncomfortable noisiness that appeared when I was zoomed out of the painting. If you zoom in, everything looks nice and crisp, but once you zoom out, you get this kind of grainy noise in your screen. So if there's one thing I really wish could be different with this tablet, it's the resolution and just the general quality of the display itself. The screen is roughly 35 x 20 centimeters, and 1080p is just not enough for that size, in my opinion. When I paint, I always have my keyboard beside my tablet so I can easily use shortcuts. For that reason, I don't really use express keys anymore. I find that the keyboard just gives you way more usability, but I do want to commend XP Pen for the design on their red scroll wheel. It feels tactile, clicky, and solid, and was really a joy to use. A lot of scroll wheels on other tablets are really smooth, and it almost feels like you're not really interacting with anything. So I really like how analog the scroll wheel feels. And the other buttons, while not as tactile, they also feel solid and they're easy to press down. There's also buttons on the side of the tablet, the right side. There's one power button, and then there's buttons to adjust the brightness, making for easy customization. So about a week into me using it, the tablet still felt really good. I had some difficulty at first adjusting to the high pressure sensitivity because again, I'm just used to 2000 pressure levels and not 8000. So that took some getting used to, and then on rare occasions I also felt like my strokes weren't really effectively being communicated to the tablet. Like sometimes I would tilt my pen a certain way or use a certain amount of pressure, and that just would not translate in the way I thought it would. But that's like only happened a few times a day, not something that was a constant annoyance. And I also had a couple of driver mishaps where the tablet suddenly stopped recognizing the input of the pen. And while that was really annoying, simply turning the tablet off, pulling the cable out for a few seconds, and then plugging it back in solved it every time. I never had to restart my entire computer due to a driver bug, which was a really big relief after dealing with a certain other tablet company's drivers for so long. So the driver, while it annoyed me a couple of times, it was really stable. More stable than I'm used to from a tablet like this. Overall, this is not a perfect tablet. The display can feel noisy at times. The pen sometimes doesn't really transfer your input. The resolution is low for my tastes, and I had 1 or 2 issues with the driver. However, and here's the kicker, the most important thing in this video. This thing costs $439. That's an incredibly affordable price for a display tablet. To compare it to the leading brand, a Cintiq of a similar size will set you back $1,500. That's more than 3 times as much. Not to mention that most tablets, no matter how pricey or prestigious, they usually have a few issues anyway. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, no matter what price class or what brand of display tablet you buy, it's going to have some issues. The technology is just not that developed to where the driver, the monitor, everything will be completely perfect. It doesn't exist. So obviously the biggest perk of getting, for example, an XP Pen tablet is the price. It's way lower than the leading brand. But honestly, what you save versus what you don't get, such an incredible contrast. Like, you're not really giving up a lot of features and you're spending $1,000 less. Could this tablet be a bit better? Yes, it certainly could, but again, I think this is worth every single cent it costs and more, really. Unless you for some reason have a ton of extra money to burn, and I doubt you do because we're all artists here. But unless you're really rich, there's no point in getting a huge Cintiq, for example. This tablet really does everything you need. The one thing I didn't like is the resolution. I wish it was maybe not 4K, but just a bit higher. But that's really the only drawback. And again, that drawback versus the huge price reduction you get makes it worth it, in my opinion. Especially considering that you can use this tablet with a 4K monitor, so you can just extend the display and effectively work in 4K with your tablet and your monitor. So it's really not a huge issue. I think it's time we all get rid of this idea that we need to have the newest, the best, the most expensive thing to be fulfilled in our work, because we don't. This is a perfectly good product, and just because it doesn't have the prestige or status of certain other products, I think it's great. It's great value. It works great. I obviously don't know how well it will hold up. I don't know how durable it is because, again, I only used it for a few weeks, but from what I've experienced so far, it's a really solid product. Well, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think their hardware is as good as Wacom's, but for such a drastic reduction in price, you get nearly the same product you would get for 3 times the price. That's absolutely incredible. So, with all that considered, this tablet is a great purchase. It does have some flaws, but overall, it's a solid product. If you've been looking for an affordable display tablet, this is the one. It feels really smooth, the size is decent, It's easy to set up, and the drivers, while sometimes buggy, are not a pain in the ass. And let's not forget, it costs $439. And I think it's worth every single cent. So those are my general thoughts on this tablet after using it for almost a month. And I want to thank XP Pen so much for sending me one and for being patient while I tested it out. They've been really great, and they're actually holding giveaways until the end of March on their Twitter page. So I'm going to link their Twitter in the description, and you can go there and see if you can snag a tablet if you're interested. Again, to my understanding, that's only lasting until the end of March, so you have 5 days until it's over. And with that being said, my demo painting is done. I think I only spent like 2 hours on this. I really wanted to do more of a sketch, really, because my hand is still injured and I don't want to put too much strain on it. So even though I really wanted to render this more, I really wanted to like fix some issues. I'm just going to leave it at this rough stage and try not to think about like how bad the hand looks and everything. But yeah, that's the way it is. And yeah, I guess this video is done. I hope this video was informative, and I hope the inclusion of the phone footage wasn't too jarring. I know the quality was so bad, but I just don't have any fancy camera equipment, and I really wanted to actually show you how this tablet looks, because that's a really important part of making a purchase like this, I think. So yeah, I said all I want to say, I hope. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!